I've been wanting to do this tutorial for a long time now. Authentication, logging in, signing up, signing in, signing out, logging out. All of that complexity is going to boil down in this short, hopefully short, YouTube tutorial. Now, if you want to ask me on a one-on-one call about your SwiftUI project or iOS development, go ahead and check out Rebeloper.com and you can book a one-on-one mentoring session with me. Okay, so what I have done is basically started off with a brand new Xcode project, and we are going to create an authentication system for a SwiftUI project. So I'm just going to go and add everything into one file, but feel free to just separate everything else, everything out into their separate folders and files. So currently we just have this hello world text and the globe, and we want to kind of simulate how we are going to authenticate and sign out and all the steps in between. So let's just talk about what we would get from a server. So the server we just usually just going to give us back either if we are authenticated or if we are not authenticated. So let's create an enum for that. So enum, let's say server auth state. We have two cases, authenticated and then not authenticated. Okay, let's just have also comma right over here, not a dot. So authenticated and not authenticated. But as you will see throughout this tutorial, this is not quite enough for user experience inside our application. So we want to create a seamless user experience with some other cases, meaning either, for example, if we haven't connected to our server just yet, it's undefined, so we don't know if we are authenticated or if we are not authenticated. Also, another case would be when we are in the progress of authenticating. So that would be our second enum over here. Let me just have a little bit more space. So we just have an enum of auth state. Not server auth state, but the internal auth state inside our application. And we would also have these two cases. So let me just copy these out. But before that, I'm just going to add undefined. So when we actually don't know if we are authenticated or not authenticated, and then authenticating. So we are in the process of authenticating our users. So that's our two states. First from the server and then internally inside our application, and we are going to create our user experience, our UI accordingly. Now let's create a short service right over here for a server. So let's create a struct. Let's just mimic, we're just going to mock everything out in this tutorial. So let's just say server, and then we just have a static function calling auth state, and I'm just going to add in here our desired auth state. That would be our server auth state, and then it would just return a server auth state. Now you might be thinking, okay, we already add in our desired server auth state, what gives? Why do we want to have this function at all? Well, we are going to simulate a server response, meaning, and this is quite important in our case, meaning that we are going to actually wait a little bit. We are going to have a delay. Therefore, we are going to make this async and also a throwing function, and we are going to handle also errors along the way. Now, because we are just going to simulate this, I'm just going to create a task. So try await a task dot sleep 4 seconds, and I'm just going to make it really long, like 3 seconds. And then we are going to return our desired server auth state. But there's a catch to it. In many SDKs, you are going to, or you should sign out instantly. So when we are going to sign out, then we are just going to wait for 0 seconds. So if, let's just replace this, if desired equals to not authenticated, then we're going to have 0, otherwise 3 seconds for a delay, a sleep. Okay, so that's our server. Seems really simple and obvious. And now it's time to create our structure. So what we're going to do is, instead of this vstack, I'm just going to create a group, and I'm just going to switch through our auth. Oh, this should be state. So auth state. We're going to switch through our auth states. So I'm just going to create a state variable at state private var auth state equal of type auth state equals, and then undefined by default. And please note that I'm not saying sign in or signed out or something like that. We are authenticating because we actually want to know the state, not the action, but the actual state of our authentication phase. So I'm just going to switch through our auth state, and that will nicely autocomplete. If we have undefined, for now, I'm just going to have some empty text so we can talk a little bit more about these stages. Okay, so we have undefined, authenticating, authenticated, and not authenticated. Now, when we are authenticated, or rather, let's just start with not authenticated. When we are not authenticated, we want to authenticate, sign in, log in, sign up, whatever. Then we want to add a action button right over here. So I'm just going to have it right over here. So a function called authenticate. Okay. And then another function called sign out will be added. Two parentheses right over here. So the sign out action will be added to our authenticated view. There we go. Checked all the typos. Everything should work fine. So let's create these views, instead of the empty text. Let's create our own separate views that we can then add over here. So the undefined and authenticating should be fairly simple. So let me just create those views over here. So I'm just going to go view, and then let's just say undefined auth view. There we go. I'm going to remove the preview. We don't need that. It's going to be a vstack, and let's just say if it's undefined, then let's just have a text of undefined. It's just simple as that. Now I'm going to copy this out, so we're not going to waste a lot of time. Then we are going to have authenticating. This is the process when we are just fetching data from the server. And then let's just have also a progress view over here so we can see something's going on. And then authenticating, maybe something like this. So we know what's going on. Okay, so those are the two simplest ones. Let's tackle the not authenticated view next. So let me just paste that undefined auth view again, and this will be then not authenticated auth view. Okay, so it should not be just a simple vstack. Let's just have content unavailable view. Let's just scroll all the way down with the label, description, and actions. So hit option, so all of the properties will be selected, and then hit return, and then return again, so it auto fills. So for the action, let's just remove this. For the action, I'm just going to propagate the action outside of this view. So let action, it's a completion of void, and this is the action of the content unavailable view. Go ahead and check it out with the right click and jump to definition if you are not accustomed to this. And then I'm just going to add a button with title and action. Oh, sorry. The action should be on the button section. As you can see, this is the completion that we already created. And then this is because we are not authenticated. Then we are going to say authenticate. There we go. And pass along the action. For the description, I'm just going to add not authenticated. Okay. And I just have an image of system names and then maybe person.fill.xmark. And also let's just have a font size of large title and then a foreground style. Because we are not authenticated, let's just have this as maybe red. Okay, let's just check it out. I'm just going to add it right over here. So not authenticated auth view with an action, and we are going to have the authenticate action right over here. And then let's just set the default value so we can see it in the preview of not authenticated. We are going to change it back to undefined, of course, but let's just see how it looks like. Great. Okay, maybe let's just have a button style of a bordered prominence so we can see it a little bit. This is great. So now what I'm going to do is just copy all of this out and paste the one for authenticated auth view. Basically, this is our content view. This is where the app lives. And then instead of X mark, we are going to go with a check mark, and this will be green. And then we are authenticated. You are authenticated. And then sign out. Okay, and this is still going to be the action, which is great. So now let's just put it also over here. So authenticated auth view with an action of sign out. Sorry, it should be signing out. Sign out, and then let's just check it out. Let's just see how it looks like. Authenticated. Let's just see. Just going to reload this in just a second. You are authenticated, and clicking on the sign out button goes over there. And finally, let's just have our authenticating auth view, and then our undefined auth view added for the cases, which is really great. Okay, so this is our structure. As you can see, there's quite a lot going on, but basically what we are doing is making sure that we have a seamless user experience. It just basically shows what's going on. So let's set this back to undefined, and we should just get that text. So undefined, great. So we don't actually know what's going on. This could be anything else, a progress view or just a simple logo. That's fine. So how are we going to kick this off? As you can see, our initial state is undefined. So we are going to be presented with this view. So when we are on presenting this view, we want to check if we are authenticated or not. So we are going to add a view modifier .task because it's going to be a asynchronous work. We are just going to say, okay, let's just check if we are authenticated. And again, this has to be done separately, but we are going to assume that we are not authenticated. So what I'm going to say, we are inside the task, so we're just going to say a do catch statement, catch. Oh, by the way, let's just refactor this also out. So let's just say func and check auth. And this will be an asynchronous throwing function. So throws. Oh, we're going to remove the throwing functionality outside over here. So do and catch. There we go. I'm just going to print out our errors localized description over here. So what I'm going to do is just say our auth state equals try await, and I'm going to go server dot, and then auth state and the desired one. Currently, we are going to assume that we are not authenticated, so I'm just going to set up not authenticated. Oh yes, we are actually returning a server auth state and not the auth state that we want. So this will be a let server auth state. There we go. And then we are going to switch through the server auth state. So switch server auth state. And if we are authenticated, then we are going to say auth state equals dot authenticated. Otherwise, auth state equals dot not authenticated. Okay, but what about the other ones? Well, because we are currently undefined, that's fine. But when we are trying, before we are actually getting back our server auth state, we must switch our auth state enum, the state variable, to authenticating. So first we say, okay, we are going to go and fetch some data from the server, we get that back, and according to its state, it says they're authenticated or not authenticated. We are going to change the UI accordingly, like setting auth state, either authenticated or not authenticated. Okay, so yeah, let's add our check auth, and this is an asynchronous function. We are inside the task, so whenever this view appears, we are going to just say await and then check auth. And yeah, as you can see, after 3 seconds, it's just going to say, after 0 seconds, because we set this to not authenticated, it's just going to say we need to authenticate. There we go. So that's how we are checking our auth. Now let's authenticate this functionality. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, let's just create a task over here, and then a simple do catch again. So do catch. Let's print out our errors, localized description. And by the way, I'm just going to add, what are we going to do? Well, when we are authenticating, again, we are reaching out to our server. So I'm just going to copy it out. But in our case, we are just going to have a desired outcome of authenticated. Okay, and then if we are going to be authenticated, then we are just going to say authenticated, which we are, by the way, but we're just checking against all cases of the server auth state. And basically that's it. Let's just check it out if it's just going to switch. So now we just hit the undefined auth view, we're just checking auth, it is returning not authenticated, obviously. And then when we are going to tap on that button, we should set the auth state to authenticated, which is going to trigger this view. So let's just see after 3 seconds. So let me just click over there, authenticating. There we go. You are authenticated. Now let's sign out. This is not implemented just yet, but it should be fairly simple and fairly the same. So I'm just going to copy this out with the task. Again, we should be authenticated, but because I do know that, it's just going to sign out instantly, I'm just going to remove this, 0 seconds. And then, again, we could just go through the auth state, but, it's much easier to just check against it than just go not authenticated instantly. We could do that too, but it's a better solution if we have any errors or anything like that. And then we are going to print it out, present it to the user, or just switch to another screen if you prefer it. But in this case, we are just going to say the auth state is not authenticated. Therefore, this not authenticated view will be presented. So let's just see it. Yes, so the view just popped up with the task of we are undefined, therefore this view appeared. Authenticating, there we go. After 3 seconds, we are in, and then if I click on sign out, it's just going to do this automatically. And again, we assume that the actual sign out is done on the background thread behind the curtains. And that's it. You want to make sure that you have, well, basically this is us together. We have auth state, undefined, authenticating, and then authenticated or not authenticated, because server auth state might just give you back if we are or not authenticated, which is not good enough for our user experience. Now, if you like these types of tutorials, you want to learn more from me, go ahead and book a session with me. It's at rebeloper.com.